All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Southeastern Sports Network podcast for Week 6. I'm Robbie Rhodes. Happy to be with you here this week, along with my co-hosts Mark Willoughby and Harris Beal. Guys, good to be with you tonight as we look to an underlying game coming up this weekend and against UIW, and we'll also talk about the game this past weekend against Tarleton State at Strawberry Stadium. Guys, good to be with you all tonight.
Hey, Robbie.
Good to be with you, Robbie. As talk about another week of Lion football.
Yep, Alan Waddell not with us tonight, but he'll be back on next week. No guest segment this week. A lot to talk about with the Lions. We'll bring that portion back next week as we have a lot of opportunities to talk a little bit about what hopefully is a UIW win. We'll talk to our guests and get ready for Lamar next week. So you're already seeing some video popping up. We'll talk about some of the game highlights against Tarleton.
Yeah, we'll just let it roll while we're talking.
Yep.
Big deal.
Guys, I wasn't at the game. I was in North Carolina at a wedding. I was kind of watching and listening to you here and there, but just another tough game for Southeastern. Just didn't seem like anything was going the Lions away on a consistent basis in the red zone, but just couldn't make the play. They just needed one play, and they just came up just a little bit short. The kids are working hard, they're playing hard, they're practicing hard, they want to win. It's just not been their thing yet to get over that hump. So Mark, just start with you. Your thoughts on how this one went and how it compares to what we've seen in the first 4 weeks besides Tarleton.
Well, not to risk being called a sunshine pumper, because I've been called that plenty of times, but I was very encouraged after Sunday. I know it's you 14 or score 13 points and a 1 point loss. You're 0-5 coming out of it. But I thought for the first time this year, we had a really good game plan on both sides of the ball. I think we came out with really good intensity, and we held it throughout the football game. I thought we got after them. I thought we dominated the game on both lines of scrimmage. I thought it's a game that, take away some mistakes, which you can't take those away, obviously, because that's why we lost the football game. But if you play a clean football game, I think this is a game you win by 2, 3, maybe 4 touchdowns against a good team. This sits 4-1 now. They'll have a chance to win their league, and I thought we played that well. Fundamentally during the game. Again, you can't turn the football over. You can't have special teams breakdowns, and you got to put the ball in the end zone when you have a chance. But I thought defensively we had a very good game plan. Bill DeTavio and his staff. I thought we covered very well on the outside. They have some good receivers. We matched up. We locked up on them all day. They didn't get over our heads. We rallied up and tackled. I thought we fit the run well. There's a lot to be encouraged about coming out of this football game. And you say, okay, you're 0-5. What are you encouraged about? Well, it's all in front of you from here on out. I mean, the at-large bid went out the window after the HCU loss. You weren't going to get an at-large bid after losing to HCU, because you lose another game, that's 5 losses, you're not getting in. But you can run the table now, especially with HCU losing to Lamar last week. If you get a win this week against UIW and you get hot and you win out, you're conference champion. So it's all in front of you. Is that realistic? I don't know. But I feel a little better today than I did last week. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, Harris, your takeaways from the game this weekend.
I mean, much improved defensively. You only gave up 203 yards of offense. And then offensively, you dominated the time of possession. You dominated on both sides of the ball, like Mark said. So I thought that was a huge, huge improvement from HCU and then until last week. I thought our offensive line played really well. Didn't give up a lot of QB hits. Didn't give up a lot of sacks compared to HCU. So that was much improved. Saw a lot of guys get more touches, more balanced offense. Went back to the run, established the run, which is something that we do really well. But I think it all boiled down to hidden yards. When you lose the hidden yardage battle, you tend to lose the game. So that's field position, that's turnovers, penalties. Southeastern lost all of those,
and flags too.
And yeah, and
we'll talk about that later. But
you can dominate the game, time of possession, offense, yardage, whatever. But if you lose the hidden yards battle, it's hard to win the game and overcome that. And unfortunately, Southeastern lost that, and they lost the game.
Yeah, I mean, you can highlight all the things that they're doing well, but you're judged at the end of the day by wins and losses. And unfortunately, Southeastern, came up a little bit short here again. And, for another week, you have some blunders in the special teams unit on the kicking game and field goals. Um, you get an extra point blocked again, and you miss a field goal. And so that's been kind of a recurring thing. I know the coaches are working hard trying to figure that out and get that right. And you know, Raleigh Callahan's a very capable kicker. I know there was an injury. Coach Shelfa mentioned that in the press conference on Monday. There was an injury to their normal holder, and they had to go with the backup holder. And everything changes there when the holder's different with the cadence and everything else. So they're working on it, and they got to work on it fast because a good team comes in here this week. One of the things I was impressed of, again, I didn't watch the game, live like you guys did, but I did watch it, on video and rewatched a lot of the highlights and things like that. Um, Tarleton coming in, and you could see it on TV. They had a really good defensive line, and they were big and they were physical. And I thought we really did well on the offensive line, uh, controlling their defensive front and opening holes, allowing us to run the football successfully.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a lot, again with Tarleton, they're kind of hit and miss on defense. They're a lot more talented, I think, than probably how they play. We've seen teams like this before. They can make you look bad by getting a TFL. They blitz a lot. They came off the edge a lot in this game. Came both safeties. They brought them from everywhere. But when you do that, they're not really gap sound. I thought we did a really good job. And that's why I think Greg Stevens had a good game plan as far as you know, dialing up plays, to take advantage of what they typically do out of certain formations and certain looks that they get and they give you defensively. So I thought we did a really good job running the ball. I thought our offensive line came off the football, got hats on hats. They were physical. They had some intent to what they were doing. And I didn't really see that against HCU the week before. And I think a lot of that just has to do with the type of energy you have going into that game and, and coming out of Eastern Washington and then I think, but I really think we doubled down this week and knew this was a team that, is a playoff type team. They're not eligible for the playoffs yet, but they're a team that could be a playoff type team. So I really think we were focused and ready to play. And when we are, it shows up and it showed up on both sides of the football. So, again, we did run the ball well. I thought we pass protected very well. There were no sacks in the game. There's one officially on the intentional grounding. I think that's officially a sack. But as far as Eli and also Zach Clement going down or being overwhelmed in the backfield, they both had time to throw, had clean pockets. They got hit a couple of times, but not nearly as much as they did the week before.
Yeah, and I think that this is the first game that I think the quarterback transition, or not transition, but the two quarterbacks have been used most efficiently. Where you had a good rhythm and flow when Zach Clement came in the game, and Eli played predominantly most of the game. I think he had a really good feel on that, and that's if they want to play two, that's going to continue to happen. Good good spots to bring in Zach, good spots to keep Eli in and use Bauer sharp and all those kind of things. Those are going to have to continue when you talk about this week against UIW and the rest of the season going forward. And look, here's the real thing. I mean, as bad as it is, and I think Coach Shelfa mentioned this on Monday on the radio show and also when he met with the media for lunch on Monday, he said, as bad as this is and as low point as we are at, we control our own destiny.
That's
And
right.
there's no more truer words than that. Now, it's an incredible uphill climb, but we have 6 games left. If you go back a year ago, we had 5 games left, and we had to basically win out. Now, one of those games in that sequence was Jacksonville State. Did not affect us in terms of our conference and winning the league. We could have lost the Jacksonville State game and still won the Southland the way it played out. But you wanted to win that game just in case you had to slip up along the way and you could get to 7-4 and still have a argument to get in the playoffs. So that was an important game. It's an important game for the confidence. So you have 6 left. You had 5 left last year. You had to win them all, and the Lions were able to accomplish that. So not too different of a situation that they're in right now. But the difference is that last year with those five left, UIW was out of the way. This year they're staring right in your face this week. Um, Harris has been done before, not really a situation you want to put yourself in, but it's the reality of where the lines sit today.
Yeah, I mean it's just all or nothing. I mean each day that you go to practice, each day that these kids go to practice, I mean their season's on the line. I think they all know that. I think the coaching staff knows that. I think they know what they have to do. I think they know what they're capable of. This is a talented football team. When we sat down and talked before the season, we looked at our roster, we compared it to everyone else in the conference. We said, there's no question about it. We're better physically and athletically across the board than anybody in this conference. Our record is 0-5. We're not an 0-5 team. We're a lot better than the record shows, and I think you'll see that this week against UIW, who's also a really good, talented team. So it's, the two juggernauts in the Southland Conference going at it. One has everything to play for. The other one, is out front and kind of sitting pretty. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I do think that the Lions will come prepared. They were prepared for Tarleton. They'll be prepared for UIW, and hopefully it's a victorious one in San Antonio.
Yeah, I think that the FCS level is very different. Everybody plays these FBS games. That's a guarantee. That's kind of a foregone conclusion that most teams are going to lose those games in the FCS level. You obviously have some upsets from time to time, but my thing is this: if you're in FBS, for example, and you're, I don't know, I'm trying to think of somebody in the FBS right now who's kind of a contender. If you're I don't know, if you're a one-loss FBS team,
Alabama.
Yeah, if you're Alabama, they have 7 games left. They cannot lose from here on out if they want to get in the college football playoff or have any chance to win the college football. Well, I guess you'd say they have 8 games left when you talk about the SEC championship game still ahead of them that they'd have to play in and win. So this happens all the time. FCS is unique where you can lose, 3 to 4 games a year in some cases if you played a good schedule and beat some good teams. You can lose 3 to 4 games a year and still find your way into the playoffs. And we've seen 6 and 5 teams get in before when they win their league. It's happened. So this is not a weird thing. Like all around college football, there are teams that still have 6, 7 games left on their schedule that know they cannot lose again if they want to get their goals. So the Lions are not in a boat that nobody's ever been in before.
Well, I would tell you this game is equally as important to UIW as it is us, because I don't think they can lose to us. I think if they lose to us, they're not going to win. They're not going to get in unless we lose again. Because I'm looking at their schedule, Robbie, and lost to UTEP, beat Northern Colorado. It's on the road, but Northern Colorado's a bottom feeder in the Big Sky. Beat them handily, 42-7, and they're getting better. But again, it's Northern Colorado right now. Abilene Christian, you beat 27-20. Abilene's solid in the UAC, but not a world beater. That's a good win though. It's on the road, and you have a non-Division I win in North American. So this schedule kind of sits up like McNeese did back in, I think it was 2017. I think they went 9-2 and didn't make the playoffs. So if you're UIW, they're looking at saying, we've got to win the league, because I think the Southland this year is a one-bid league. And I think that's just the way it's played out. So
there's no doubt about it.
So they're going to have to circle the wagons too. So I don't think this is just a game where they can afford to drop one and we can't. I think we're both in the same boat.
And I think that the Southland right now, look, I'll be honest with you. When we lost to Commerce and we beat Jacksonville State after the bye week, I said to myself, and I was respectful of everybody, and I know we had to go on the road for 3 of the last 4 games. And McNeese did play us really well, but I basically said to myself, well, looking at our team, we won the league, because I knew the Southland was so bad last year with, McNeese, Lamar, Northwestern, Nichols, all on our schedule those last 4 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, we just won the league. And we needed Commerce to lose twice, which they did. They lost to UIW and they actually lost a few other games. But I knew it. It's not that the Southland's not good this year. It's not good again. It's struggling mightily.
We're
But
not in the same boat. I'll just
right,
tell you. Yeah,
we're not in
it's
the same
different.
boat. Yeah, it's different. And the teams that are in the Southland that are the bottom right now are getting better and going to get better. You know, Lamar, and I think you're going to see them in Strawberry Stadium in 2 weeks. They're, if you watch their first game when Idaho came to Beaumont, and then watch them last week against HCU, which is HCU's HCU, you can just tell that they're a way better football team than they were week one. And they're getting better under a new head coach. I think Commerce is getting better too. Um, McNeese is still
So is
struggling.
HCU.
Yeah, HCU, they're behind us, but they're getting better too. Like, I just think that if we beat UIW, it's going to be a much taller task to win out in our last 5 games than it was previously. Now it sets up okay because you got McNeese at home, you got Nichols at home. Nichols is getting better too.
Yeah.
And you got Lamar at home. You got to go on another tough road trip to Commerce, and you got to go to Northwestern. So it's a lot more difficult to do that this year. But I think that there's a chance UIW could be beat like along the way as well. You know, another time. Like if you beat UIW this weekend and we're able to find ourselves and win out and beat the teams I think we're more talented in the rest of the way, it wouldn't be crazy to think UIW loses again against one of these teams if they don't play their best, and you win the league at 6-5 at what would that be? Help me out here, guys. 6-1 in the Southland Conference.
Yeah.
It's not crazy to think that.
Well, it is possible. And I would tell you, I know HCU lost to Lamar on Saturday, but they have the makings of a team that can go beat people. I mean, they run good tempo. They have a good quarterback who, when he's hot, is good. They had athletic receivers. They're physical, active on defense. And again, I know they beat us last week, come back this week and kind of lay an egg at Lamar. But Lamar, as you said, is getting better. So, they're that type of team. Nichols is kind of sitting there out there sleeping. They were 0 for until this week. They go on the road and get a big win at McNeese. They played Sacramento State fairly close to open the year. Sac State's pretty good. So Nichols is kind of that
They
team
played
nobody's
two
talking.
FBSs like
Yeah,
we did.
yeah, they played a very tough schedule in the country according to all the gurus. But again, it could come down to the River Bell. I mean, you just never know. But you got to go play this week, and you got to. But the thing you have to do from here on out, and you got to really do this every week, and you should do this every week. It's play by play. Win the play you're playing. Beat the opponent across from you on that particular play and just grind it out one at a time and then stack wins. And don't think about what we got to do to make the playoffs, what happens if we lose this game. You just got to go play. And I know the coaches think that. And I know the players have tunnel vision, and fans are a little different. We can look ahead and play what if all we want, but it's you got to literally take them one at a time.
Yeah, I think that and Harris, I'll let you jump in here in a second. I think that last year in that last 5 game stretch when you lost the game to Commerce and you were sitting there at 3-3 through your first 6 games, you kind of had this thing in the back of your mind. The question was asked of people like, well, if we do slip up one more time, we'll be 7-4, we'll meet the threshold. Is our resume good enough to get in? You had that kind of that fallback plan. Now that was kind of like in the hands of the committee. That was out of your hands, right? But that's out the window now. I mean, there is no committee that will have Southeastern on their board in any kind of capacity at 5-6.
Oh,
So
the Southland Conference is the laughing stock right now in FCS football. I mean, it's on every single FCS fan
yeah,
board that they're talking about the overall record being 4 and whatever, four and
yeah, you're right, Harris. I mean,
it's
I read somebody saying how like it was a joke that UIW is ranked as high as they are, and
yeah.
how like, oh, they're going to just run through the league and they're going to be the weakest, top 10 team ranked in the country. I know rankings don't mean anything in FCS football because the committee, you know,
You, you, you got
if
four teams that are have 0 wins.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think if you look at UIW, if they were to run the table, they would finish 10-1. Um, I don't think they would get an overall top 8 seed. Mark, do you?
It's going to be tough, just because they don't have. And again,
they play that
they're
NAIA school.
yeah. I mean, they're a good football team. They're still good. I mean, we're sitting here talking like they're way down. They're not. I mean, they have a good quarterback. We'll talk about Calzada. He's really good. He's dynamic. They have a lot of the receivers back. Some of the same receivers back. A lot of the same defense. I mean, they're talented. They're very good. You look at them. They're kind of look like they always do. I don't think they're quite as prolific offensively. At least they haven't been so far. They're a little bit slower paced than they have been. Look a little bit different, but they're still very good. They're going to be tough for us to go in there and play on Saturday. But the resume is just not going to be strong enough. There's just nothing on the resume because let's face it, we would be their signature win if they beat us. We're 0-5 right now. So is that a signature win if you beat an 0-5 team? No, we'd have a losing record. And then there's nobody else left on their schedule that would have a winning record or even have a chance to have a winning record unless one of them gets hot and wins out. Maybe Nichols. They would have to get hot, but I don't even think they can. So, it's I just don't see where they have no FBS win. They've got a non-D1. So they just won't stack the resume up there with when you start comparing them to the Big Sky and the Colonial or the Missouri Valley to where they could get a top 8 seed. But one way they would or hope to do it would be to beat us handily. So I know that's something they're looking at. But it's going to be a typical war like it always is when we get together with UIW.
Been some great games between UIW and Southeastern going back since 2019. I guess you can kind of throw in there. They weren't the hot commodity that they were.
18, I'd say 18, and they got us over there that year. And they were even pretty good in 16. They weren't a playoff team.
Yeah, the Lions came into UIW feeling really good about themselves. They started off 0-3 with 2 FBS losses to Monroe, LSU, and then lost to the team that would win the league in that year in UCA. Then beat Northwestern and beat Lamar. So they were 2-3 coming in, and they kind of felt like, hey, we can right the ship. And UIW, that was the emergence of Eric Morris and his team. I can't remember the quarterback that they had there for those 2 years that played so well.
Pull it up for you here in a second.
He kind of made his coming out party in that game against Southeastern. Played fabulous. McNeese went in there and also lost to them later this season.
But hats off to them. 3 head coaches in the last 3 years. They figure out the portal, and they continue to. It doesn't matter who's coaching that football team. They've continued to get good players in San Antonio. They don't have the greatest facilities by any means, but they figure out how to get guys there that want to play football and win. So hats off to them for doing a good job at that because 3 years, three different head coaches, that's tough.
John Copeland is a young man's
That's
name.
right. And I think that was kind of the beginning for them. They ended up winning the Southland that year. And Mark, look that up. What were they that year? Were they 6-5 winning the Southland?
Yeah, they finished 6-5. Let's see, lost to New Mexico 62-30. North Texas 58-16. So 2 FBS right out of the chute and got pounded. Kind of, so they're not on anybody's radar at that point. Then they beat SFA 31-7. Beat Abilene 44-34. And I think that Abilene game is the one that really woke everyone up because you had the SFA was kind of in transition, Clint Conk, and had those issues going on there. And of course, now they're 2-2 playing us. And, we're still, feel like we got a chance. We're going to be pretty good. We played pretty well coming out of the chute and played LSU tough. And UCA, even though we lost that game, played them tough, played Monroe tough. We're feeling pretty good. Beat Lamar, and all of a sudden we go to UIW and it's 52-34. I know we jumped on them early, and then all of a sudden you start turning the football over, and it kind of snowballed on us. But that's when we said, wait a minute, UIW is building something here under Eric Morris, and then of course Copeland's there in 18 and 19, and then of course Cam Ward comes in, and as a true freshman. Copeland transfers, and it's a Cam Ward show for 2 years. He transfers to Washington State, and then Lindsey Scott transfers in from Nicholls State, and they just kept that train rolling. And also, as you mentioned, between three different head coaches, now there was Zach Calzada with a new head coach, and they've been resilient, and they're in a great area for high school football and a great area to get transfers back home. I think they're dealing with NIL money too, and some.
Do you think they have NIL money, Mark?
I think they have some. I mean, I know they do because Cam Ward had one when the year he was there. So I don't know how detailed it is, but I do think they're dealing with some things that give them a little bit of an advantage. And they got a big budget. Their budget's the biggest in the Southland Conference by a lot. So it's a Catholic school, largest Catholic school in Texas, and it's in a great area for high school football. So they should be good. I think once their facilities catch up, they got a chance to really have something special, and they already do.
Well, I think that they have I think the sky's the limit for them in terms of facilities because they have some space out there, and they could really blow it up. I know they did talk about wanting to go FBS when they did join the WAC there for that short amount of time. That was their plan, and then they came back to the Southland Conference when the WAC started to kind of fall apart. So, talking about the Tarleton game, it was a struggle to get the ball in the end zone, guys. But some dramatic no calls and bad calls by the officiating crew. I think for Lion fans, just kind of reading the tea leaves, reading social media, reading the fan boards and stuff. That was the biggest takeaway for a lot of people on how bad some of these calls were, and calls that affected the game. Harris, you don't want to be a homer and say, oh well, it's whatever. The truth is that that there were some calls that were game changers, stop drives, took points off the board for the Lions. Tarleton had some really bad calls against them too, I thought, that they missed. But Tarleton State came into this game in the first 4 games averaging 8 penalties a game. They averaged that, okay? That's a really high penalty threshold for any team to average a game. And they had none. None were called against them in this game. 0. That to me just doesn't happen very much, Harris, when you have a team that's kind of been a penalty-happy team all year to have 0 on the road against a good team. It's a bad look for the Southland. It was a Southland crew. This was a Southland crew in a non-conference game. It'll be a WAC crew when the Lions go up there next year. But it didn't look like it. It looked like it was a crew that was just lost. Totally.
Yeah, I mean, to go from 8 penalties a game to not have a single penalty called on you for 4 quarters is that's a joke. And we've watched the film and we watched it live, and there was play after play.
We've got some calls queued up right here too. These are some of the plays in question we'll talk about. But go ahead, Harris.
Yeah, I mean it's just unheard of the home team, and it's your conference crew, and they don't call a single penalty on.
Well, we're not asking the conference to cheat for us.
No, not at all. But I'm just saying it's like it didn't seem right. It didn't seem it's just unheard of to have a game go that way. And there was just some blatant calls that just didn't make sense, like the pass interference on Jacob Logan when they should have called holding on on the defender on hanging all over Bauer Sharp. Just little things like that just added up all game long and killed drives. You go from second and manageable to now second and long, or third and manageable to third and long, and it was tough. It was tough to watch. It was tough to watch it live and try to stay positive in the booth. It was just difficult.
Well, it's again, all you ask is that the game is officiated the same on both sides, and I would tell you all year long we've had good officiating. The first game of the year played Mississippi State. They didn't call anything. I mean,
I loved it.
They weren't going to call a flag on anybody. Mississippi State tackled us a bunch. They didn't call it. They didn't call it on us. Let both teams play, and they got in and got out. South Alabama, I thought, was very well officiated. I thought, going to Eastern Washington was very well officiated. I think they got a couple of calls late. Were probably homer calls, but we expect that. You're playing a Big Sky team. You're on the road. We're not getting those calls, so I don't think there was any complaint from us about that. And but I think that game was evenly called, and I thought Houston Christian was about as well officiated a game as we've had all year. We just got beat. This one, there's a saying, selective enforcement, and what does that mean? It means, yeah, I choose to see it here, but I don't see it here, and we'll talk about it right here on this play. This is the first play of the game. Now, this is an illegal formation by us. If you can see it here, we're off the line of scrimmage at the top of the screen. You can argue that maybe one of our left tackles lined up a little bit deep, but we don't have enough men at the line of scrimmage, so they throw the flag. And it's a good call, and it should come back.
Mark, tell people what you're supposed to have at the line of scrimmage.
You're supposed to have 7 on the line of scrimmage. We had 6. There's 5 in the backfield. Okay, here's Abilene Christian now. Okay, this is on their only touchdown drive where they scored offensively. If you look at the 2 receivers at the top of the screen, they are off the line of scrimmage. The line of scrimmage is really the right here would be the 30. It's a 34 here, but it's really the 33 and a half. He's got the ball pulled back. The center picks the ball and pulls it back. So it's really about another yard or half a yard north of that 34-yard line. But both receivers are off the line of scrimmage. I would argue the right tackle's too deep, too far off. Okay, that's okay. That's not the big problem. Okay, you could throw a flag right here, but look right before the snap. Watch the receiver at the top of the screen. He's going to jump, and he doesn't reset. So that's a false start. Never reset for 1 second. That play should come back. This is a 19-yard gain. They set up shop at the 15. They punch it in, I think, the next play. Here is Zach Clement on the long run. Did he step out of bounds? Yeah, I think he did. I think you run this thing back and you stop it and freeze frame it. I think his heel's on the line. I think you agree with that, Harris?
Yeah.
That's a good call right there. We'll continue to walk through these. Here's Clement.
I mean, it's bang, bang. It's close.
Okay, here's the biggest one of the game. This is the strip sack fumble. KK Reno comes in, knocks the ball out, picks it up, scoop and a score.
It's a well-designed. This is a well-designed stunt too by the defensive coaches.
Oh, absolutely!
If you can back the play up, they did a great job scheming this up to stunt back. Watch him come around just like that. It's a good stunt.
And KK Reno is playing outstanding, by the way, just so folks at home know. He played a well of a game on Saturday. Well, he gets a strip sack, and a scoop and score doesn't count. Now, to the officials on the field, their credit, they let this play roll. This was a replay of reversal, and we'll get a replay here again, a little better version of it coming up here shortly. Okay, right here. Okay, now, any part of a quarterback's arm is moving forward with the ball secure in his hand, it's an incomplete pass. Okay, but is his arm moving forward? His torso rotates. He cocks back. The torso rotates. The arm's still not moving forward. Okay, now his torso rotates, and the ball slapped out. So his arm never goes forward. The ball comes back. I mean, to me, at worst, that should have stood on the field.
Right.
They chose to reverse it.
That's the thing to me is like it's so close. Like when you slow it down like that, it's really close. But I would argue that if it was called an incomplete pass on the field, that has to stand. There's not enough evidence there. Because look how far his arm's back there, and the ball's clearly out of his hand.
But the arm's attached to your torso. So your torso is going to rotate through before your arm comes forward. So now, if there's some literature, I know the NCAA has a case manual. They'll have videos because the rules read one thing and the rules aren't super, super detailed. So they'll have a case book and say, this is what this means, is rules interpretation. There's an interpretation that if your torso is rotating through and your arms come, that's considered throwing the football, then this is probably a good reversal. But his arm never launches without the football. And so and it's pretty easy to see, I think. And to me, this play should have stood. I get it. This wasn't the most egregious, I would just tell you. To me, I can live with that one, even though it took points off the board. This play right here is okay. This is the one I think everybody was up in arms on. Over Zach Clement down the line of scrimmage in the white, gets blasted right here. Not targeting, but I mean he clearly launched at him out of bounds. And what happens is Harlan Dixon comes in. You'll see it right here. He's trying to protect his quarterback. Gives a little shove right in front of the official, and I have no problem with that being a flag. personally. I mean, that you can't do that. Although nobody's going to blame Harlan Dixon, but he gets a flag thrown, then you get taunting by some Tarleton players, and basically,
Was a taunting called?
no,
No,
no, there's no
of course not.
taunting.
When
There
he
was no,
stopped, when that player stopped right back at the line and starts
And he did
dancing
a
in front of the
dancing. Yeah,
players. Yeah, that's
nothing.
not.
no, that's not called. The only thing that's called is unsportsmanlike on Harlan Dixon. So we're penalized 15 yards. Now it's still 1st and 10. We recovered, but again, we would have had the ball 1st and 10 around there 35 or so, or
30.
33 looks like. Now instead we've got it back at our 38. So you got further to go. You got to run more plays. You got more, more chances to make a mistake, and we did. I think we ended up
Clock.
fumbling,
The clock's a
or
big deal now.
yeah. So I think we ended up fumbling or getting the field goal or missing a field goal or missing on 4th down here. But so anyway, that's that play. Um, this is a holding call on. They call it now. They called this, I believe, on Landclose, the right tackle, but I think they probably meant to get the right guard because I don't think Landclose. This is actually a hold, but I think the right guard up here probably did. That's an okay call. I don't, but again, that sets us behind the chains. Now we're 1st and 20. We got a drive going. We don't recover. It's a big penalty. Okay. This play here is the offensive pass interference. Okay, so now you've got a little rub route going on between the two tight ends. You got Bauer Sharp running a little in cut. You got Jacob Logan running an out cut.
Look at Bauer Sharp's jersey.
Bauer Sharp's being held already. Now you can, at the line of scrimmage, within a yard of the line of scrimmage, you're allowed to jam receivers because tight ends block and that sort of thing.
But you can't hold.
But you can't hold especially when the ball's in the air. Well, he never disengages. Well, Jacob Logan, right here, all he's got to do is avoid him, and watch what he does. Whoop, gets out of the way, doesn't make contact. You can see
Right.
that. Doesn't make contact. He's still being held.
Yep.
Ball's in the air, still being held. So at worst, this should be offsetting. Offensive pass interference if you think there's contact, which obviously the official did. He threw the flag, but where's the hold? So why doesn't that offset? What difference does that make? Well, I'll tell you what difference it makes. We're 1st and 10. So instead of offsetting being 1st and 10 again, right around the 40-yard line, now we're 1st and 25. We don't recover. So, and we're moving the ball well. Okay, so that's a huge penalty. It's a huge miss of the holding call. So, is it offensive pass interference? I don't think so, but he called it. That's fine, but at least offset it. And this is the intentional grounding. This is going to be a throwback to the tight end who got held up at the line of scrimmage. Eli, they get blitz off the edge. He just turns to dump it into a void area. He's trying to throw it to Jacob Logan, who's crossing right here. Everybody's pointing at him, as you can see, but they say he threw it too far away, called the intentional grounding. Another big penalty because now it kills a drive. So that's a big one. And we got one coming up. I think the last one, or the one we missed, I think, was the holding call or non-holding call on Darius Lewis. Runs a little whip route out of the slot, and they grab him. The guy using the slingshot around, knock the ball away, and it's right in the middle of the field. And that's another big penalty because it's 3rd and 6, and we don't convert. So, again, we talk about in of itself, any of these calls, you would say it's just part of football, but because they had nothing called. And there were several times they could have had holds or, especially on defense with our receivers that they just get no calls. So again, selective enforcement.
Yeah, and it's just a bad look. If I'm another Southland school, I know coaches that aren't at Southeastern are not paying attention to our games very closely. Maybe not even at all. They're very in depth with their own games and what's going on with their teams. But if I'm another coach of a Southland school, when I get wind of that, I kind of go like, come on, no, like that makes me nervous, right? That makes me nervous that like, why are we not calling games that are non-conference games, equally, and it hurts the league. It hurts the league. Now the league loses another non-conference game. Not saying if they would have called all those penalties, the Lions would have won. But when if you're in a 52-7 game, yeah, I mean, hey, look, you just kind of like that wasn't going to change the game. But when you're in 1-point games, makes a big difference.
Well,
And
we didn't win because we missed an extra point.
yeah,
We
we had
fumbled.
chances.
We threw a pick six, turned the ball over again, gave them the plus side of the field to start a drive, and their only offensive touchdown. So I mean, we were our own worst enemy. Don't get me wrong, but again, there when you have that many, when the margin's that slim, you just want a fair fight, and just didn't seem like it was on Saturday. And again, we double them in total yardage, total offense, and I think we gave up 203 yards total offense in the entire day. I think they had
The
one
defense
drive.
the defense only gave up 7 points. I mean,
Yeah, they get basically one drive into our territory that was sustained. One started in our territory. I think they one other that they drove into our territory, and that was it. And you lose a football game. But again, it's kind of spilled milk, and a lot of people say we're complaining. We are, but just if you were here and you saw it and it happened to your team, I think you wouldn't appreciate it either. But this team, I think, is the big thing to take away from this one is I feel like we are back on track in terms of I think we had a good enough defensive performance. I think we feel good about. I thought we played well on offense, although we didn't execute. And you only scored 13 points, but I thought we did a lot of good things. And I'll go back to you guys talking about the usage of the quarterbacks. I thought this felt like last year. The way we use the quarterbacks, it felt like or with Cole and Chase, felt like we're using Zach perfectly. Came in, ran the football, threw the ball well, put him in some good positions to be successful throwing the football. I mean, again, his issue has been turnovers, and I think the more he throws it, I think that's kind of been his issue. But I think we really used him well, and I thought we used Eli well. And I think mix and match, and then have Bauer as that wildcat.
I thought Bauer, the added wrinkle of Bauer was really good. Adding his size and his speed to that mix really added another wrinkle to the offense.
I agree.
Well, guys, it's all behind us. 0-5, as you mentioned, but as we talked about, UIW is ahead. Zach Calzada is the quarterback for the UIW Cardinals. A lot of people might have heard that name before. He was the quarterback and recruited and started his career at Texas A&M, was a second string quarterback there before an injury forced him to start the back end of the 2021 season. Did beat Alabama. He beat the number one team in the country at Kyle Field in 2021. But overall, besides that, he had some major struggles through the season, did not play well. And I think that the staff at A&M, they want to go a different direction. He transfers to Auburn and could not get in the rotation there, and then came to UIW. So, you last year, a Lindsey Scott guy who you felt like his career was over, was kind of benched at Nichols, so to speak, has the greatest resurrection of anybody in football I've seen, and wins the Peyton. And Zach Calzada is trying to do the same thing this year, and he's gotten off to a pretty good start. So, Harris, your thoughts on this UIW offense and how the Lions have to go out and try to stop them this Saturday?
Well, I don't think Calzada is Cameron Ward or Lindsey Scott, but I do think he's a talented football player, and I think that UIW offensively will put him in a good position to be successful. They score a bunch of points. They're not as electric as we're used to seeing, but they're fundamentally sound. They execute well. They don't really turn the ball over. So I think Lions defense has got to play like they did last week. Only give it up 7 points defensively and only 203 yards. That's a lot to ask for this offense. Tarleton's offense wasn't as dynamic as what we're going to see with UIW, but definitely need a good defensive performance by the Southeastern defense to keep UIW in check, to at least keep it manageable, and allow our offense to make some plays and execute like we know that they can. But I think this week, you'll see a little bit of the same stuff. They're three different head coaches, but they still kind of run the same offense. So
it's
all interesting.
Yeah, it's all from the same tree. But go ahead, Robbie.
Yeah, I mean, the Lions went to their first two trips to San Antonio were absolutely dominating performances in 2014 in 2016. Just, that's kind of when UIW was in a bad position as a program. They were trying to figure out where they wanted to go, making the transition from Division Two, and the Lions just dominated UIW in those 2 years. And it's never been the same since. The Lions were beat pretty convincingly in 2018. They went back in 2020 in the spring COVID year, and probably a little closer game. The score indicated UIW just kind of had a hot streak there at the end of the first half to distance their lead. The Lions just couldn't catch up. The 2021 game was just an incredible football game. It was the Cameron Ward, Cole Kelly's show, where both just went back and forth, and it just came down to who had the ball last, and it ended up being Cam Ward and UIW, and they were able to win the game and score a touchdown and win a close game. And then last year you had the incredible finish at Strawberry Stadium, where look, UIW was probably one of the best teams in the country last year. They were, I know the Bison beat them in the semis, but they outplayed them for pretty much 3.5 quarters. Kind of gave up a late touchdown at the end in the fourth quarter, but UIW could have easily won that game and played South Dakota State in the national championship game. That's how good they were. And the Lions played toe to toe with them around the field that night. And the last play was a fluke walk off, but the whole game, the fact that they were in the game and the way they played them was not a fluke at all.
Oh no, I thought that was. I mean, Frank Selfo's been here. This is his 6th year. To me, that's probably the signature win. Obviously Idaho, I think, is right in that mix as well, and Villanova. But UIW was probably, player for player, both sides of the ball. That team they had last year is as talented a conference team or FCS team we've played. Maybe James Madison, I would say, was probably a little better. Montana, I think this UIW team was probably a little bit better than them. But again, we were ready to play that night, and Eli Sawyer played well off the bench. Cephas got hurt early, and I just think we were locked in, and hopefully we're locked in again Saturday, because we're going to have to be. And you watch this UIW team play, and trying to compare them to last year, and they're a little bit different. I mean, against a new head coach. The one thing I think that has given Southeastern problems this year is tempo. Mississippi State didn't run a lot of fast tempo. I thought we defended them pretty well till we got overwhelmed in the second half. We just couldn't move the ball. But South Alabama, I think when they went tempo, gave us problems. I think when they were slower, we defended them well. Eastern Washington went like lightning, and we struggled stopping them all day. And I think that's when we really realized how much tempo gave us problems. And HCU came at us with tempo as well, and we had some issues there. And Tarleton was basically like turtles compared to the other ones. They were slow, ran a play clock down. They're at the line of scrimmage, but they're not snapping the ball until deeper in the play clock. So this Incarnate Word team, this version is not as fast as they've been under Eric Morris, and then even last year. I think they're a little bit more deliberate. I know they do want to go tempo, and they will go fast, but and it may be because Calzada has just gotten there, and he's trying to now in game 4, game 5, maybe they start going faster this week, but hopefully that plays a little bit more to our favor.
And look, the elephant in the room is that the Lions have an uphill battle to play a good team, but they also have an uphill battle on a basically 11-hour road trip. I think for the normal person, it's probably an 8.5-hour drive to San Antonio from Hammond. For the Lions in 3 buses, it's having to stop and do all those things. It's a little bit more. So Coach Selfo decided, talking to some people and some teams around the country that do have some long bus trips that they have to take on each year, decided to break the trip up into 2 days. The Lions are going to leave on Thursday. They're going to practice. They don't have school this week because it's fall break, so they're going to practice in the morning. They're going to have lunch, do their normal meetings on Thursday afternoon, and pull out sometime around, I think, 4:30, and head to Beaumont and stay the night in Beaumont. It's what, Mark, about 3.5 hours from here?
3.5.
Yeah. So, try to get in and get a good night's rest. They're going to get up and they're going to go to a local high school in Beaumont to do their normal walkthrough. They'll eat, and they'll finish the drive to San Antonio, which is another probably about 4 or 5 hours over to San Antonio through the city of Houston, and get in there and rest up. So they're going to try that method because, Lions have had to go to UIW, 3 times in the last 4 years. This is our fourth trip over there now. And it hasn't really worked very well. So they're trying something new to try to shake things up. So you have a UIW team that is coming off of a bye week and a NAI school. So they've kind of been able to game plan for the Lions for basically 3 straight weeks.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's the advantage of scheduling, right? I mean, you can literally schedule yourself in and out of the playoffs, and I think so it makes a huge difference. I know, coaches don't like to complain about it, and I know administrators certainly don't like to listen to coaches complain about it. But the reality is, when you play two FBS, a national power on the road, it's 2,500 miles away from home. To start your season, it puts you at a little bit of a disadvantage, especially when you don't win those games, and all of a sudden you're trying to, what's going wrong? What do we got to do to get out of this funk? And in UIW, on the other hand, it's, their schedule's been about as easy as it can get. I mean, you get UTEP, they lost that game. It's an FBS game, but a game they probably could have won, if it wasn't their first game of the year, and Calzada and the offense would have had some continuity together. But, then they beat Abilene Christian 27-20, got Northern Colorado, which is not a real good program out of the Big Sky. Then you get NAIA. So they've had that schedule, that get right schedule, they could, kind of have some fits and starts and overcome some things and work some kinks out. Now conference play starts. Here we go. So they're set up. They're set up for a good run, and if they get by us this week, I mean, it's probably smooth sailing the rest of the way for the UIW Cardinals.
Yeah, and that's an advantage. Cheris, go ahead. Your thoughts.
No, just to piggyback on what Mark said is that, scheduling is key, not having the two FBS games, and then you have the bye week, and then also the D2 game or NAIA game, they're healthy. They got the added week of rest, which is a huge advantage going into a big conference matchup. So, yeah, scheduling is key, and I hope that in the future, you'll see some better scheduling for the Southeastern Lions.
Yeah, I just find it, how convenient is it that your top two teams coming in the conference, everybody kind of knows who it is, and they got the open date right before before they play us, and we're in week 6. I mean, that's a tough one. And again, I don't know if there's any, if that's intentional or anything, but it's just a tough way to have to go in to play your toughest team in your 6th game, and they're coming off an open date. So
yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah, it's tough, and a lot to overcome. But sometimes when your backs are against the wall and you're a cage lion, so to speak, you're going to fight the hardest to get out. And so, look, the Lions need their best effort tonight, this Saturday. They need to play their best game of the year, and they need to put it all together in the red zone. They need to, be executing well on first down, giving them chances to have second and third manageable situations. They got to keep UIW off the field. A similar game plan to what they did in 2022 in Strawberry Stadium, where they really controlled the clock, controlled the game, executed, converted third downs, got UIW behind the chains, didn't let them get that tempo going that really kind of was the driving force of their success last year. So a lot of the same stuff, and you have to overcome a place that's not been your friend, a tough place to go in.
Well, we got to get off to a fast start, and I think as the last several times we've been to UIW, we have not gotten off to fast starts, and they've kind of snowballed on us early. And I know in 18, 20, and 21, all 3 of those games were, although I think we scored first maybe in 21, but they kind of got up on us 2 or 3 scores early, and we had to fight back, and we were just kind of right there, nip and tuck. Never could quite get over the hump the rest of the way, but I think you do need a fast start. I think you got to just go in there and protect the football early and put some points on the board. And you just can't give up big plays. You certainly can't have 3 turnovers, and you can't have a lot of penalties. And your special teams have to play well. And that's didn't happen this past Saturday, and it's got to happen this week.
Yeah, and the Lions have only led. I mean, this isn't a crazy stat for an 0-5 team, but the Lions have only led for like 3 game minutes all year. They got up 7-0 on South Alabama before the Jaguars went right down the field and scored to tie the game. So,
And Eastern Washington led them like
oh yeah,
on 4 different occasions. I
yeah,
think they went back and forth, and we led
yeah.
like it was 29-26 late,
Yeah.
but yeah,
7 minutes
not
sustaining.
we didn't sustain it. Right, we got the lead, and they came right back and either tied it or took the lead. But
So,
yeah,
guys, I think we've hit all the nails. We'll go around one more time for final thoughts, Harris. You know, your final thoughts after Tarleton, looking at UIW next week.
Yeah, I mean, you're 0-5, and this is a biggest game of the year so far. It's got to be. This is it's kind of all or nothing. Season's on the line in San Antonio. I think the guys will be prepared. I think the coaches are going to be prepared, and I think you'll see some success finally on the football field for the Lions. So it's a tough game. Nothing's easy. I know the Southland Conference might seem bad, but it's a tough place to go in each week and try to get a W. There's always a team that's going to sneak up on somebody. But I think this week the Lions take care of business, and it's about to be the start of a run. So that's my
Much
final
for that.
thoughts.
Mark, same to you.
well, I'm optimistic this week, and that's not to say that I'm predicting a win or anything like that. I don't tend to make predictions, but I feel good about this football team, especially coming out of last week, even though it's a loss. And we did some things that we didn't do very well, like protect the football and untimely penalties and special teams breakdowns. But the core of what this team is doing on both sides of the ball, I think, is going in the right direction. And I think they're again, teams peak at different times, and obviously this team hasn't peaked. We're 0-5, but I can see that coming. And this is a game that they're going to have to rally the wagons and have a good trip and go over and play well. And I just kind of have a good feeling about this game. Don't ask me why, but I just kind of do. We'll
Yeah.
see how it goes.
All right, guys. Appreciate it as always. We'll see you for week 7. We'll have our guests back. We'll have Alan back, and we'll talk UIW and look ahead to Lamar for homecoming. This has been another edition of the Southeast Sports Network podcast. Until next week, thanks a lot for watching. See you guys.